All right. Mitch Sherman covers Nebraska for the Athletic college football site. He's been with us a couple of times before and joins us now the day after Scott Frost, his contract restructured, assistant coach is gone. Mitch, thank you very much. Is this gonna give him a new lease on life? And who's going to hire the assistants? Is that going to be Trev Albert or is it going to be Scott Frost?
Hey, Smokey, how are you? I think it'll be Scott Frost making the hires on the assistant coaches. Trev Alberts, the athletic director, is fully going to allow Scott to succeed at this or mess it up. And if he messes it up, then there's not a lot of time left on the clock. This is not now a long-term deal. They've got a year, probably. Maybe you could say 2, but I think it's more likely a year to show some real progress. So it's a tough ask for a group of new assistants to walk into, but they will be able to hire guys. It's Big Ten job. It's good money. It's probably 2 years of pay, even if they're coaching 1 year. And if they coach one and do well, then they get to continue. So they will be able to attract candidates, and we'll see what he's looking at. I would think fairly soon. If you're going to make this move to get rid of your current offensive staff, 80% of it, with 2 games left on the schedule, there's a reason there, and I would think that means because you're planning to move fast and have something in place with that 2022 staff very soon after this year ends on Black Friday.
Mitch, how much of this is not just staff that needs to be moved out the door, but some of the players as well? One in particular is Adrian Martinez, who I know keeps them in and out of games in the exact moment, seemingly a lot of the times. But I kind of feel like if maybe Scott Frost wasn't saddled with him as being the best quarterback available on the roster, it may work in the benefit of the team.
You never know what might happen if you didn't feel like you had to go with him because of the talent that he's got and the ceiling that he's got. But it has never worked out in the way that they've intended with Martinez. Always, and I say always because it is actually always, when they get in these spots to be able to have an opportunity to win a game, a clutch moment, it just hasn't worked. It was, again, that way last Saturday against Ohio State. Nebraska has the ball down 6:11 left, long field to go. Adrian had a 20-yard run to start the drive, and then quick 3 incompletions, and they're out. Ohio State gets the ball and scores, and that's a repeated pattern that has happened in 6 of Nebraska's 7 games this year. It's had the ball with a chance to go ahead late in the game, and it's not scored a single point on any of those drives. And here they are at 3-7. You can't point entirely to the quarterback because he's a big part of the reason they've had the success that they have had in staying in games. He's the engineer that has allowed this to become a boom or bust offense, and they've produced big plays, but they've not won games, and it's a repeated pattern with Martinez at the helm. So, yes, Paul, I'm in agreement. I think they have to find a way with Scott coming back for a 5th year to do it with the same quarterback all 5 years. That's not really fair in the evaluation process. It's time to see in 2022 if he's able to do this differently when he's got a different quarterback in charge.
Mitch, I saw where Frost talked about making incremental progress, and that's something that he's talked about a lot. Where have you – I mean, obviously the end of games have been absolute disasters, but where have you seen the incremental progress, so to speak, with this roster this season?
Well, on defense, you see it. There's been incremental progress for 4 seasons on defense, and they're playing like a top 20 or 25 defense in the country statistically. And more than that, just the way that they stop opponents, they've started to even generate turnovers, make big plays, get stops when needed. It's just that they can't do everything because they're put in such bad situations with poor special teams play and inefficient offense. So the defense has made incremental progress, not just this year, and it has this year, but also throughout the 4 years with Scott Frost in charge of the team, Eric Chenander, the defensive coordinator, in charge of that side of the ball. There are places on the offensive side where you've seen progress. There's been some growth among some of the receivers this year. Among the top running back, Ramir Johnson, he's come along this season, was not expected to be the guy at all, like a fourth or fifth string running back coming into the season. He's turned into an adequate, capable Big Ten back who can carry the ball and move the chains and make catches out of the backfield. The tight ends have shown some growth this year. Austin Allen is a guy who's going to have a decision to make about coming back as a sixth-year senior next year or going to the NFL. You've seen it with a lot of individual players, really, on both sides of the ball, more on defense. But I would agree there's incremental progress, and you can tell by the outcomes of these games. I mean, in the scores of these games, but you can't tell when you look at that record, which is 3-7.
You know, there's two things, Mitch, that and you know me, and you and I have traded back sometimes. I think you just like block me on purpose, and you should, and we've mentioned that before. They're a dumb football team. Let's put it this way: their football IQ is not very high, and their special teams is a wreck. Tom Osborne had great football players and great teams, and he had also great special teams. He never took an eye off of that. And here you have a bad team that if maybe a little bit better in special teams, they might be, 5-4, 4-5 instead of whatever they are right now, or 4-6, or then 3-7. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's unusual to look at it and say they could have actually won maybe 3 or 4 more games with good special teams play, maybe 2 more games with just mediocre special teams play. But it really is the case with this team. Sometimes I think that gets overblown, and you can make that statement, and it's maybe exaggerated. Special teams cost you 1 game or makes a 1-game swing. It really is as many as 4 with this team. I mean, Oklahoma, it was huge. Ohio State, it was huge. Michigan State, it flat out lost them the game. Michigan, it was big. Illinois, it was huge. The special team taking a safety on a punt return, missed kicks, bad punts. They're all over the place. And as they've gotten later into the season, they've shored up some of the things with the coverage and return units. The return units were a mess early in the year. Not been so much of that. I wouldn't say it's been great, but it hasn't cost them points necessarily. Where they have not gotten better is in the kicking, the punting and the place kicking. 2 more missed field goals against Ohio State. It's just not the kind of mistake you can make. Ohio State made 4 field goals in that game. They were 4 for 4. Nebraska was 0 for 2. It's a 9-point game. Both teams scored 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, hey, there you go. I guess Nebraska was 1 for 3. I figure 17 points, there's a field goal. So 1 for 3 versus 4 for 4. That's the difference in the game. And it's not a new thing. So yeah, whatever the new complexion of the staff is, it's likely going to have to include a special teams coordinator if Trev Alberts is serious about allowing Scott Frost to construct this thing or encouraging him to construct this thing in a way that makes the team better in all 3 phases. They're going to need a dedicated special teams coordinator. No more with the outside linebackers coach being in charge of all of the special teams, or having an analyst in charge of the special teams as Nebraska did in 2020. It's time to have one of your 10 assistant coaches who heads that thing up. Other teams in the Big Ten West, a number of them do it that way, and Nebraska needs to get on even playing field with those opponents. I think it's coming, but we'll know for sure in a few weeks.
How much will Scott Frost be willing to adjust his offensive philosophy? I mean, maybe I'm not talking about going back to the power I or running the wishbone or something, but maybe in a search for a coordinator, change what he had as an overall goal for the offense when he first got there 5 years ago.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be the same offense that he brought from UCF, the same offense that he ran at Oregon. I think he's going to let his coordinator have some freedom to what he wants to do, but I don't think Scott's going to pick a guy who's dramatically different from what his philosophies are. They're still going to want to throw the ball. They're still going to want to incorporate RPO. They're still going to want to have a strong running game. With the players that they have in the program, they're going to need to build something that fits those guys. They don't have time to rebuild this thing from scratch, bring in new players for a new system. It's got to work in 2022. So it can't be that much different from a schematic standpoint just because of the personnel that they have coming back. to be able to work in the short term. So it's going to look somewhat similar, but I'm sure that the new offensive coordinator, who presumably is going to be calling plays and allow Scott Frost to be more of a CEO, walk around type head coach, put his own imprint on things defensively and with special teams. But presumably that guy is going to have some freedom. So really interesting. That's the biggest hire that he has to make out of these four. Some might argue special teams. I just made a good case for special teams and the importance of it. But you're talking about an offensive coordinator who's likely going to call plays and coach quarterbacks. And perhaps would be influential in bringing in a quarterback out of the transfer portal if Nebraska's not entirely sold on the two guys, plus the commitment out of San Antonio, who are expected to be on the roster next year. If they're not entirely sold on those three, there may be a portal guy coming in. I would expect that quarterback is going to be connected in some way to the new coordinator. So huge hire to make for Scott at that position.
I agree with you what you said about Martinez. You almost had to let him play. He's so talented, but it didn't seem like he progressed. He still was making some of the mistakes. The turnovers were deadly from the first game against Colorado when he was a true freshman. Hey, Mitch, thanks for your time. We'll see what happens. In a day and age where everybody's just changing, it says quite a bit, and sometimes maybe the best thing to do is not, and see how it works out. Thanks for your time.
Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.
Mitch Sherman, theathletic.com, on Scott Frost restructuring his deal. I think it's also fair to say that who are they going to get? When you have Florida, perhaps, LSU and USC, among others, and even right now with TCU and a couple of others looking for coaches, who are they going to get? Who's going to be a better fit? It has been awful with him. It's been bad, but you could just set yourself back another 10 years, so why not be patient? Sometimes it's better to throw a ball away than get sacked. Sometimes it's better to punt than throw a pick, right? And in this particular case, in coaching changes, it might be better just not to do one.
And I think the big thing for Nebraska fans is they don't want to feel like probably they gave up on a guy who's one of their own, too soon, even though he has had a good amount of time at this point. So I think it's fair all the way around for everybody involved. All right, one more year. Prove it or you're out. And there's no arguments that can be made about that, because you could have had an argument if you were a fan about if they were to have pulled the plug right now. But I think this is actually a smart move. So we know either Scott Frost is going to get this thing turned around next season, or Nebraska is going to be first in line on the head coaching search. So prepare yourselves for that. I hope it works out for them. I really do. But they're going to have to make a lot of changes and really clean up a lot, especially just the self-inflicted penalties that you could put a highlight reel together from the last couple of seasons and put yakety sacks over it, and it would be a classic.
One of the things, a lot of people agree with what they've done. That doesn't mean it's right, but a lot of people agree with them being patient. And in this particular case,
I think Adrian Martinez can be like
on
that.
The chat room.
That if you move him out, and I'm sure he's a great kid and all, but if you move him out and you take that and you make the coaches have to really look at who the best quarterback is overall, not the one who could be the best if he could stop fumbling or didn't have baby hands or whatever Adrian Martinez's problem is. It's going to be like one of those things like, look, we love hanging out with Frank, but every time we do, he gets drunk and, breaks a window, and then you stop hanging out with Frank and windows stop getting broken. It sucks, but how it is.
We all know of Frank, huh?
Yeah.
Martinez runs out of bounds a yard short on fourth down or third down. It's not all him. He didn't have a lot of protection over the years, and they got to get better. I don't know if they can. I hope, for my sake, my sanity, that eventually they do. It's like watching a nightmare every single week. When we come back, Dan Mullen in Florida, another week down, another bad loss to South Carolina. Edgar Thompson from the Orlando Sentinel covers Florida Gators football, and he is next on 365 Sports.